I'm going to test the mic. Is this a good height? I raised it up. Yeah, just be staying. No. I need this. Yeah. Attention all TJ Maxx shoppers. The time now is 9:15 and our store closes in exactly 15 minutes. Please make your final selections and bring them to the registers located at the front of our store. Is that sounding good, y'all? Is that sounding good? Ish? Do you need more volume? I just switched it. Tilted it. Welcome. Hi, Paul Hampton. Da 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 da. Attention all TJ Maxx shoppers, the time now is 9:15 and our store closes in exactly 15 minutes. Attention, Paul. You, TJ Maxx shopper, we need you out of our store in 15 minutes. I would like to go home, I would like to go dancing at the bar, and you are preventing that. I got you, boo. Are you Jersey or Long Island? Long Island. Thank you. Ta 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 ta. Ta 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 ta. All right, okay, for the fashion, you're gonna drop. What's that called when you like blam on the floor? Death drop. All good gifts surround us, are sent from heaven above. Give me that scarf. I almost snatched it off his neck. I almost snatched it. Yes, I did. I almost snatched it. Those bright lights they're interacting with the new lenses in a really trippy way, so I won't be looking at that. I can see those all of the state lights. I can't react.
Yeah, it is very different. Yeah, it is.
A good day to you all. Welcome, and to those in Zoom land or wherever you may be, whichever platform, we are glad you have chosen to worship with us today. I am Reverend Chris Long, the Minister of Pastoral Care and Programming here at Community Church, and I welcome you on behalf of our ministry team, our staff, and all of our lay leaders. It is good to be together both in person and online. Community Church, as you know, is a multiracial, multicultural, multi-generational congregation with a vision and commitment to build a world grounded in equity and inclusion. Today's worship team also includes Jerry Brown, our music director, Darnell White, our musician in residence, and our choir. Errol King de los Santos is our communications coordinator. Reverend Jude Geiger is our minister for community engagement. We have a simple order of service available to those who are in the room here, and we have the QR code, which I just looked up this week, means quick response code. At the top, there'll be other announcements at some point there. Today's topic is coming into our own. Please rise in body or spirit and let us sing together our opening hymn, Wake Now My Senses, number 298 in our gray hymnal.
Please be seated. Let this be a house of hope. May our souls come together this hour and our hearts open up to the rhythms of our songs. Let us leave behind the frets that ever cling to us and share our true burdens with one another, so that in prayer and companionship we may find ourselves a love that shall inspire and endure. Our choir will lead us now in our chalice lighting song. We light this candle, the flame of our heritage. May it ignite and hope in our lives, in our community, and in the world. I invite you to join with me in unison, reading our affirmation. Unto the Church Universal, which is the depository of all ancient wisdom and the school of all modern thought, which recognizes in all prophets a harmony, in all scriptures a unity, and through all dispensations a continuity, which abjures all that separates and divides, and always magnifies humanity and peace, which seeks truth in freedom, justice in love, and individual discipline in social duty, and which shall make of all persons one beloved community, unto this church and unto all its members, known and unknown throughout the world, we pledge the allegiance of our hands and our hearts.
Our land acknowledgement. We are gathered on the unceded lands of the Lenape peoples. I ask you to join me in acknowledging the Lenape community, their elders, both past and present, as well as future generations. Community Church of New York also acknowledges that it was founded upon exclusions and erasures of many indigenous peoples, including those whose land this institution is located. This acknowledgement demonstrates a commitment to beginning the process of working to dismantle the ongoing legacies of settler colonialism. It's now a time in our service each week when we greet our neighbors. We're also inviting those on Zoom or whatever platform to unmute yourselves to say hello to each other in Zoom land as we greet each other here in the sanctuary. Let's greet our neighbors.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Hi, Denise.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. It's good to see everyone.
Hi, Teresa.
Good morning.
Hi, Rose, David, Marcia, Eric, Dr. Garland, Judy.
time for silence. We now enter a time of deeper centering, grounding prayer. I invite you to check in with your breath. Where is it in your body at this moment? Wherever it is, continue to be gentle with yourself as we all continue to hold so very much. Tops or near the tops of all of our minds is what is taking place in the Ukraine, other areas of Europe, and now, of course, the world over. Even closer to home, we have communities in New York City that identify as Ukrainian. Even in this congregation, this war is bringing deep fear, anxiety, even pain as it connects deeply with previous wars and traumas not yet fully healed. Spirit of life, continue to be with all of those directly in harm's way and continue to provide, if at all possible, continued courage and hope, even when it is truly hard. Even still, inflation is on the rise like not seen in maybe 4 decades. The prices of gas and food, housing, all continue to rise with no relief expected, possibly until the end of the year, in the best case scenario. Unfortunately, we heard there are upticks in COVID around the globe. May we continue to reach out and share of our resources, especially with those we know are less fortunate than we are. With the blessings of our beloved Nafisa Degani, she gave me permission to share with all who are gathered that her father, Ismail Ko Musi, passed away peacefully a few nights ago. She shared that he lived a life up until 1 year ago into his 90s, being one of the kindest, most generous spirits she has ever known. She says, please feel free to send cards, notes, and other condolences to her home. Continued prayers now for our community. Someone shares the people of Ukraine. I also want to uplift Miss Brenda Schroed's Aunt Lucille, who we keep in our prayers always. Again, the people of the Ukraine and people of Russia too. Spirit of life and love, please continue to provide safe passage to Reverend Peggy, Megan Henry, Carrie McEvoy, Jen Shard, and another community members who continue their 10-day pilgrimage in Jordan. For all of these prayers and those that remain in the silent sanctuaries of our hearts, Amen, Ashe, blessed be, Salam, and Shalom. Today's reading is brought to us by world-renowned Buddhist American nun, Pema Chodron. When things fall apart, heart advice for difficult times. Quote, once there was a young warrior. Her teacher told her that she had to do battle with fear. She didn't want to do that. It seemed too aggressive, it was scary, it seemed unfriendly. But the teacher said she had to do it and gave her the instructions for the battle. The day arrived. The student warrior stood on one side and fear stood on the other. The warrior was feeling very small, and fear was looking big and wrathful. They both had their weapons. The young warrior roused herself and went toward fear, prostrated 3 times, and asked, "May I have your permission to go into battle with you?" Fear said, "Thank you for showing me so much respect that you ask my permission." Then the young warrior said, "How can I defeat you?" Fear replied, "My weapons are that I talk fast and I get very close in your face. Then you get completely unnerved and you do whatever I say. If you don't do what I tell you, I have no power. You can listen to me and you can have respect for me. You can even be convinced by me. But if you don't do what I say, I have no power." And in that way, the student warrior learned how to defeat fear.
Good afternoon again. Does the volume sound good to you? Awesome, thank you. Today we're going to be doing a deep dive into the writings of the Buddhist abbess, now retired, Pema Chodron. She was a Canadian teacher with a prolific talent for writing and publishing her wisdom. And we'll be doing so through the lens of spring. Happy first day of spring, everyone. We made it yet again. Yeah. And a blessed star to those who celebrate. And what all of that means for the life of the community of faith. We'll begin with her words. This is every quote I'm choosing today is coming from her book, When Things Fall Apart. We think that the point is to pass the test or overcome the problem. But the truth is that things don't really get solved. They come together and they fall apart, and they come together again and fall apart again. It's just like that. The healing comes from letting there be room for all of this to happen. Room for grief, room for relief, room for misery, and room for joy. I've been reflecting a lot this year about being immersed in a season of change in our lives. It seems perpetual. 10 weeks in now, as one of your ministers, I'm just beginning to hear our congregation talking about all the transitions going on for our community as well. We're just about less than 3 years away from our 200th anniversary. Some of the stories are energizing and sustaining, and some of the stories speak of slowing down. Some of us have suffered losses in our families or continue to wrestle with health concerns that don't seem to go away, while others are celebrating new beginnings with school or work. Each of these are happening all the time. On any given day, you can look around and you'll see a little bit of sorrow and joy in each of our faces. Although sometimes it's hard to notice if the person doesn't want you to see the vulnerability. We often talk about the springtime of our life being childhood and the winter being our elder years. In some basic ways, the metaphor has merit on its own, but I'm not sure it goes deep enough. Reincarnation aside, winter inevitably turns to spring, and I have yet to meet anyone who's successfully turned back the clock to childhood. It's more helpful if we consider the seasons in each time of our life. However old we are, there are always beginnings and endings. We're always fragile, and we are always rooted. There are always times of excitement and exhaustion. We can be renewed by spring, or we can be reflective in the winter. This can happen through the course of the day, but over the arc of our lives, it's most visible in hindsight. We see it most clearly when we turn a new leaf in our story. They come together and they fall apart. What does it look like and feel like as we turn to our next leaf in our own lives, in the life of this congregation? Ask yourself right now, and I will not have a quiz on this later, so whatever answer can be true in the silence of your mind. What season are we in? What season are you in this moment, in your own life? What season is our congregation in? What changes within us as we take on the long view of a million or such turns in the life of a soul or a community of souls? As we've said a lot the last month or so, maybe the last couple of years, change happens, and will continue to for a very long time. Someone comes along, hears a thing or a phrase or a way of living or a tradition. She thinks it's meaningful and helpful, but has a new use for it. She takes it and runs with it, hopefully bringing the idea a new life and a new direction. She makes it meaningful and relevant to her generation or to a new time. All that's critical in the life of a community or a person. Times change, and so do needs and outlooks. I'm not sure any of us 3 years ago would have imagined we would be here right now, the world would be where it is right now. But an idea or a ritual or tradition come from somewhere and had a meaning and a value all its own. It grew out of a place of shared values of another people maybe, or another time. It could be a snapshot of a generation or a family. Where it goes and grows toward is just as important as where it came from, what soil it was rooted in. An idea or a practice can grow ignorant of its foundation, but will be more rich and certainly stronger for the knowing. So we share our stories from generation to generation. What season, though, we're in will often influence how we react to the intrepid new leader or new idea. Maybe more importantly, how we feel about the season we're in will influence our responses as well. Are you in a dry time of your life? Will new pathways offer renewal and a turning towards spring? Or are you feeling bitter and willing to allow the coldness to wither new openings? Both are real. Or are you in a time of reflection in your life where it's not yet time for new beginnings? And in the life of this congregation, as the newest here on the staff team, I'm especially wondering about our ministry and staff team in the coming year. Our podcaster, Amy, who's been with us for a few years, is left to secure other work in her graduate field of specialty. We're happy for her. I'm only 10 weeks in, and in a few months, both of our ministerial interns, Megan and Carrie, will have successfully completed their 2 years of service and learning with us and moving further down their path of ordination. We're happy for them too. Community Church has encountered this transition a dozen times or more when you consider all the wonderful staff that have been part of our community over these past almost 200 years. We have always had a tremendous amount of transition, and we continue to. Some things we can control and some things we cannot. As Penma said, we think that the point is to pass the test or overcome the problem. But the truth is that things don't really get solved. They come together and they fall apart. And they come together again and fall apart again. It's just like that. The healing comes from letting there be room for all of this to happen. Room for grief, for relief, for misery, and yes, room for joy. These are the days we are given. And we, whether we're in person or we're on Zoom throughout the week, we choose to spend these days in community. What emerges from community can be the spiritual discipline to manage the pain and to celebrate the good. In community, we grow, we fail, and we achieve. In community, we learn, interact, exchange, and connect. One UU minister, a young adult still, I believe, Reverend Elizabeth Wynn, she's been very active over the years in our denominational social justice work. She reminds us, her words, we are part of a community when we show up shiny and not so shiny. When we bring our sour and our sweet, when we shed the shiny and show up hungry, we're always both fragile and rooted. As a religious community, our central purpose, our strength on our good days, is in the realm of values. These days, we seem to be that rare place that explores values and ethics and theology in a communal and self-reflective way. And this is wherein our community saves lives and renews dreams. And yes, change will happen here, even here, maybe especially here. Instilling values is an art. It's integral to the process of growing up. I have the suspicion that growing up is not so much about learning more stuff and knowing how to do more things and better. I expect it's less about expertise. Growing up is coming to grips with the reality of the brevity of life, an appreciation for how precious and delicate we all are, that life ultimately is more about the questions of value than about the details, the whys. The whys that lead to who we become overshadow the hows and how-tos of daily living. The values are the central act of religious community, and I believe values are, and this is the greatest gift we can offer, both to the wider community and to ourselves. Pema Chodron's quote points us to the longer view. There's a traditional story, parable, or proverb in Chinese Buddhist culture. It's widely influential in all of Southeast Asia, but it comes out of the Chinese tradition. There's a farmer, a rancher, a well-respected man in town by the name of Sai Wang, and he's got a horse he loves, a beautiful racing horse that's a magnificent stallion in the area. And one day, the horse escapes from the ranch overnight. And a villager comes by and says to Sai Wang, "Oh, this is so sad. You've lost your prized horse. This is horrible." And Sai pauses and looks to the villager and says, "It is hard to tell now if this is a good or a bad thing." And the villager goes off. And a few days later, that prized horse returns to the ranch with a mare, another beautiful horse, and villagers come by to celebrate and congratulate Sai Wang. How wonderful, you lost your horse and they've returned with a mare. You'll be able to raise even more prize horses for the community and for yourself. How fortunate you are. And Sai pauses and says, it is too hard to tell whether this is a good thing or a bad thing. Time goes by, and his son is riding the horse out in the fields, loves to ride the horse, and takes a hard fall and breaks a leg and an arm. It would take months to recover, and the villagers come by and offer their condolences on how unfortunate it is that their son was so badly injured. And again, Sai Wang says to the villagers, "It is too soon to know whether this is a good thing or a bad thing." And as some time comes by, and the emperor has declared a war in the adjoining nation, and as all the young men in the village are conscripted to the war, the son who broke his arm and leg is recovering at home, is left behind because he's not fit to go out to war. And the parable ends with Sai Wang looking out into the beautiful day and the sun and the mountains and being content. The failings and disappointments that sometimes feel like catastrophes may in fact be the doorways to new opportunities. In the Chinese culture around this story, the teaching is often reflected when folks have a turn of luck, bad to good or good to bad. And it's probably the most famous proverb or parable in the Chinese culture. The new, the fresh, the next great thing sometimes can't come about without something else ending. The longer view reminds us that not all that is bad is actually bad in the long run. I find that it comes down to what stories we tell about our lives, what stories come out in the moment, and which ones paint a decade or a generation. When we've experienced less, we may be more prone to fixating on how difficult or downright awful an encounter might be. But in the longer view, most of these stories seem to open up more doorways than we could possibly imagine. It doesn't take away the horribleness of the sudden turn in our lives, though. Sai Wang was not glad his son, Shirley, was injured. The healing, though, comes from letting, as Pema said, there be room for all this to happen, room for grief, for relief, for misery, and for joy. I was recently with friends, eating out and laughing at the absurdity of all the well-laid plans we made in our lives. Who here has ever made a well-laid-out plan in their life? A few of you. How'd that work out? Pretty good, right? Yeah. When I was in my early 20s, I was working in information technology. I had a solid job supervising a 24/7 computer help desk for 12,000 students and another 4,000 faculty and staff at the university, with at the time what was my longest term relationship, going on 3 years. Little debt and more vacation time than I could possibly ever use. That was a story I told for several years. It was true. Most of it was really a trap for me. I had taken that job as an opportunity to get professional experience right out of college and save up enough money to go into nonprofit work, which is what I really wanted to do. I was thinking about the ministry, but I would ultimately stick with nonprofit first. The truth is that I was never going to leave that job unless it became a horrible place to work. One new vice president later, who was hired by a union-breaking president in the school, and suddenly so many qualified, capable, and expert colleagues left, many of us emotional wrecks in its wake. I could find no place of compassion or care for this particular vice president. I could not find a way at the time to story that experience in the affirmative. In the blink of a few months, I was miserable and needed a way out, and couldn't see the silver lining at the end of the road. Looking back with a longer view, without the Dilbert-esque vice president, I simply would not be where I am today. And back then, I honestly could not imagine this new world at all. The acute clarity of the short-term vision brings the pain and difficulty vividly to bear, to the forefront. We can choose to revision all that has come before us and see it in the bigger picture. And still, we don't need to be old to realize this truth about life, just like we don't have to be toddlers to still throw a wailing tantrum. Probably the most meaningful lesson I learned in my seminary days was in a human faith and human development class. And the instructor said, "We are every age we have ever been." At all times, we are every age we have ever been. Doorways forever open and close, but we can always choose differently, accepting the realm of death. But the new destination will never be the same. I personally think it's a very bad theology to say everything happens for a reason. Maybe you disagree. But I do think it's true that we can find meaning and purpose in all the things that happen. It's how the story of our life emerges. That ability to tell a story may be the very thing that defines our humanity. Our elders among us can help remind us of this truth. They can help steer us back on the path of moderation at times, compassion and forgiveness, ever reminding us that our family and our religious community matter more for how well it strives to support us than it seeks to always agree with us, how it keeps us all rooted. Our longest term members, regardless of age, have seen a congregation of shared values living out the past, some cases 30 years, some cases 70 years here. We pass on our values in light of the changing seasons, and activities and habits and styles. There is an essence to the life and spirit of this congregation that can be felt and can be lived, but words would rarely suffice. It is our task, regardless of age, to witness this transition, to strive to crack it open for the next generation, to partake and to be enlivened by this, I'll say, sacramental work, for the transmission of communal spirit is a sacred endeavor. In the awareness of the precariousness of life and the appreciation for endings that enliven our beginnings, we come to know the time of our lives. Fragility teaches us this too. We honor the best of ourselves by blessing the sanctity of the lives we share in community. In doing so, we become a blessing ourselves to the world around us. Sometimes the season we're in our lives isn't going to shift neatly to the next, turn back to an earlier time. Sometimes when we live out ourselves fully and honestly, we can help another person make a profound choice toward wholeness, wherever they are in their path, whichever season that might be. At the start of this sermon, I asked two questions, and I promise you don't have to tell me the answers. What does it look and feel like as we turn to our next leaf in our own lives and the life of a congregation? And what changes within us as we take on the long view of 1 million or so more such turns in the life of a soul or a community of souls? I cannot answer the first for any of us, but I can ask us all to be open to accepting a new look and a new feel to the next page of our communal story. For the leaf must now turn. And for the second question, I hope that for each of us, we learn from the perpetual transition in our communal story. May it remind us that in our own lives, each new challenge or adversity is for but a time. And it might just be something that opens a new path that is wondrous all on its own. With each new move, something may pass away as the autumn leaves. Something may finally birth anew as our current springtime demands. And sometimes the change is nothing more and nothing less than our souls bending toward the motion of that perpetual light which transcends and imbues all life. Amen, and blessed be. I invite you all now to rise in body or in spirit and join us in singing Praise in Springtime, number 1005, in the Teal hymnals.
Praise the Lord, glorious
Please take your seats if you want to. Life at Community Church is active whether you are online or in person. It is our hope that wherever you are and whatever way you are comfortable engaging in the mission and ministry of this church, we have provided opportunities for you and you out in Zoom land. A group of congregants, as we've shared, including Reverend Peggy, are now in Jordan and engaging 10-day project. They will be meeting and learning and considering ministry opportunities in the Middle East. We can stay connected to their work daily through our Facebook group, where they'll post videos and regular reflections. On Tuesdays from 7 to 8:30, Ms. Esther Rosado and I, Reverend Chris Long, will be co-leading the next of 5 more sessions on the topic, Evil, What is it? There is space for 15 to 20 members and friends of the congregation. Please email either of us for details. Also, we gather in Zoom room 10 with the usual password. Thank you and hope to see you there. The Wellspring Announcements. We will begin to offer a new program for collaborative spiritual direction over Zoom for new and or longtime members that provides opportunities to become more connected and engaged. Participants in UU Wellspring find spiritual transformation as they explore the historical and theological roots of Unitarian Universalism, reflect on their own spiritual understandings, and engage in spiritual practice. UU Wellsprings is a unique 10-month small group program offered online. The twice-a-month 90-minute sessions offer participants an opportunity for spiritual deepening that leads to more joyful living, increased congregational leadership, and faithful justice-making in their lives and in their communities. This is the inaugural year of it, and Reverend Jude will facilitate these groups as we learn and grow together, and as we empower one another to continue to lead in our own ministries. To learn more, please contact Reverend Jude at J Geiger, that's G-A, no, that's not G-A, that's J-G-E-I-G-E-R at ccny.org. I'll repeat that again, someone's reaching for paper. J-G-E-I-G-E-R at ccny.org. All participants are asked to attend a special Zoom retreat on Saturday, April 9th, from 2 to 6 to kick off the year of community and connection. When was that? What time? Where? Woo, 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 woo. Register online for one of our groups. All will begin after our April 9th retreat. There'll be the first and third Tuesday mornings from 9 to 12:30. 11 to 12:30. Thank you for being here, because that does say 11. Second and fourth Thursdays from 5 to 6:30. News alert, news alert, news alert. Our quarterly congregational meeting will be on April 3rd, 12 p.m. in the main Zoom room. 12 o'clock in the main Zoom room. Access this event on our website at ccny.org. The Community Church Seder this year will be facilitated by our very own Dr. Leonore Tiefer, and that will be on April 16th from 5 to 6:30 p.m. Access this event through the homepage on the day of the event at ccny.org. Online prayer requests will be live this coming week. Visit ccny.org and select prayer request, so the section on the top menu. Thank you to the group for taking in these announcements for this week, and Community Church is on the move. We are a 7-day church, and most of our programming happens on Zoom. If you'd like to connect with other UUs, check out the website and your program for a schedule. Every Sunday, we pass a basket to support the ministries of this congregation. Our spiritual home thrives as a result of your generosity of time, talent, and treasures. We will receive these gifts in deep gratitude. The offering will now be graciously taken. Please join me as we speak aloud our chalice distinguishing words. Knowing how quickly the flame of truth may be extinguished, how easily the chalice of fellowship broken, let us be vigilant in faith, keep peace in our hearts, and make care for one another the watchword of our lives together. So our light goes out into the world.
For those who see God, may God be with us. For those who embrace life, may life return our affections. For those who seek a right path, may we be found and the courage to take it, move by move. For this is the day we are given. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Amen.
We keep that on.
Janice. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Leonora. Hello.
Hello, Marilyn. Hello.
Hello, hello. How wonderful. Everybody unmute yourselves. Oh, I love this. They're not sticking us in rooms, not of our choice. We get to say hello to everybody. Hooray. Hi, Patty. Who's that? Oh,
Hi,
yeah.
David.
David.
Hi, Laura, and everyone else.
Hi, David.
Okay.
Everybody. What? Say.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, I called you. That's Leonore's, is the computer you're on, but you're Faye, right?
Right.
If I put all my glasses on, I look like a frog,
Oh,
but I
man.
need two glasses to see.
It's Leonore. Hi, Leonore. You still in Chicago or you're back?
No, I'm back from Chicago, Faye. I'm in the living room and in my apartment.